Shockingly, 2022, farm workers considered essential work, but the people that perform that work are not considered employees under Maine law. Farm workers in Maine are not entitled to the state minimum wage, nor are they entitled to overtime.
I mean, the hardest part I would say is being out in the fields in the sun, bent over all day with the rake. Usually around 3, 4 o'clock in the morning to be out in the fields, and then the same routine, 7 days a week. Farm working is 7 days a week. Farm workers don't have a day off unless the weather.
The reality in Maine and in most states in the country is that if farm workers talk to one another and bring those concerns to their employer, they can be fired. And that firing is totally legal because of the legal system that we have in place. That firing is immoral and unjust, but perfectly legal.
So even though the pay is often unfair, you feel like you can't speak up about it, that there's no rights.
And it's really no surprise that workers who come to Maine traveling 3,000 to 4,000 miles to work here to feed us, they know that if they talk, they will be fired. And they will be fired at a place thousands of miles from their home. They will not only lose their jobs, they will lose their housing in migrant labor camps. They can be put out on the street, and they are, given no money in a state where they might not speak the language. In order for workers' lives to change, for the lives of farm workers to change, they need the same rights that are granted and taken for granted to every other working person in the United States and the state of Maine. Challenging one's work conditions in that environment is fraught with personal and economic danger. If you lose your job, you lose your home. What that bill would have done is it would simply allow farm workers to talk to one another about their pay, their working conditions, their housing, and bring those concerns to their employer without the fear of being fired.
Democrats hold majorities in both the Senate and House chamber, and the Blaine House is controlled by a Democrat too. This battle about unionizing, regardless of what industry, there's always somebody with deep pockets, influence, power that's trying to make it hard for people to do that.
I thought it was a little insulting that she said it would take lawyers to read the language in the bill. It's not that hard to read, and farmers that I know are intelligent, educated citizens of Maine.
The governor's veto said, we don't see you, we don't respect you, we don't appreciate you. Thank you for feeding us, but we're not going to give you the same rights that every other worker is entitled to in our country. In the governor's veto message, it's noteworthy and tragic that she didn't talk about farm workers at all. She talked about the small family farm and that this bill was an attack on those family farmers. And that's simply not true. I was extremely saddened and disappointed, but sadly not surprised. In the 1930s, when the National Labor Relations Act was enacted, two groups of people were notably left out: domestic workers and farm workers. And it doesn't take a lot of research into history to realize that those are the occupations that you found on plantations during slavery.
It's how workers have been kept down throughout history, is by dividing them. And so when a class of workers is separated out from the right to collective bargaining, it threatens all of us.
The bill to allow Maine's farm workers to unionize is now dead, but the effort may not be over.
Every time I visited a migrant labor camp, I was able to go home at the end of the night. Those workers stayed there in that state of fear, doing backbreaking work so they could send it home to their families. And I told my clients this, and many of my clients became dear friends. If I ever get the chance, I'm going to try to become an elected official and change these rules.
People depend on farm workers to harvest. They deserve to be treated as other employers and have the right to be able to come together to speak up for those rights.
There are a lot of things that we've gained that it took many times going to the legislature to get. And I don't anticipate us giving up on the right of all workers to form collective action and take collective action in their workplace.